Hi, my name's Hudson, and I'm a geoholic.
Just a quick note to express our appreciation for the 2021 Friends of the Program for their continued support. Please consider their products and services as they have special promos for Geoholics listeners. Aerotech Mapping Inc., atmlv.com. Advanced Geodetic Surveys Inc., agsgps.com. Bad Elf GPS, bad-elf.com. Cobb Fenley, cobbfenley.com. Cyanic Automation, cyanicautomation.com. Diamondback Land Surveying, diamondbacklandsurveying.com. Get Kids Into Survey, getkidsintosurvey.com. Land Surveyors United, landsurveyorsunited.com. Mentoring Mondays, mentoringmondays.xyz. Monson Engineering, monsonengineering.com. Parkland Community College, parkland.edu/land-surveying. Safety Apparel, safetyapparel.us. And last but not least, Tiger Supplies, tigersupplies.com.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
Perfect song for this episode, boys. You'll see what I mean here in just a few minutes. Happy Groundhog Day, everybody. I know when this gets out, it'll already be past Groundhog Day, of course, but we have to recognize it. Welcome back to the Geoholics. What about that movie? You guys seen that?
Oh, absolutely.
Great movie.
Classic, right? Classic. One of my favorite lines was, and I wrote this down because I could not remember all this. The line was, I was in the Virgin Islands once. I met a girl. We ate lobster, drank pina coladas. At sunset, we made love like sea otters. That was a pretty good day. Why couldn't I get that day over and over and over?
It does sound like a good day.
So awesome, yeah. So, anyways, we're glad you're with us. This is episode 68. Shoots, what you got for 68, buddy?
This is an obvious one. Jaromir Jagr. Yeah, 1990, the fifth overall pick to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And that was after 2 years of playing in the Czech Republic professionally. He's a member of the Triple Gold Club. He's got the Stanley Cup, Ice Hockey World Championship, and an Olympic gold medal.
Oh, wow.
1981 to 2001. He's one of three people to win the Art Ross Trophy, the leading scorer in the league. Who are the other two?
Lemieux.
Yep.
Gretzky.
Of course.
Boom.
It's that easy. He's in the Czech Ice Hockey Hall of Fame, and he's still currently playing for his hometown team in the Czech Republic.
How old is he? Do you know?
I don't know.
He's got to be 44.
He was like
I have no
great when he
idea.
was still playing in the NHL, so
He might be Tom Brady's age.
he had like when I was reading up on him, there was one of the years where he was injured and they like dragged him out for a few like shifts just so he could play in the playoffs and
Yep.
stuff. So
That's
he's
awesome.
near the end, but that's definitely a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, January came and went in the blink of an eye, which is crazy how fast time is flying. Lots going on with the Geoholics already this year. I'm super excited. A couple items I want to make note of. Be sure to keep an eye open for details about our next virtual hospitality suite, which is going to be next Thursday, actually, the 11th. And it's going to be the second Thursday of every month. You'll put that on your calendars, 5:30 to 7 Arizona time. This month's host is Trent Keenan and Diamondback Land Surveying. So I'm excited to see what he's got to say. He actually sent us a package of stickers. I'll have to show you the stickers. It's awesome.
Glad to hear he's a good guy though.
He's a good guy. Yep. And what do you think the odds are he'll be drinking Old Elk whiskey that night?
I would put
Just about 100.
Yeah, I was going to say
I've got-
99.9.
Yes, minus 400. No, plus 700.
Yeah, hammer yes there.
Hammer in the yes
Yeah.
on that
Oh,
one.
yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
All right. We recently teamed up with the folks at Surveyor Connect, which is pretty exciting. Wanted to mention that. If you don't already know, they're another value-adding online community for surveyors. Check them out at surveyorconnect.com. And finally, just one more thing, just a social media reminder. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join our LinkedIn group. Tons of fun stuff going on there. And before we move on, a couple Patreon plugs, some patrons that had signed up over the last week. McKenna Grow, you know her.
We do.
Jake Keesby, the lovely Carrie, and Michael Thompson, of course. And Michael was kind enough to donate his branded Bill hat to producer Jake.
He heard my plea
He
last
did.
episode.
He felt sorry for you.
Can you model it for us real quick? on the video?
Oh, geez, hold
Just
on.
like this. Just like
There
this.
you go.
It's pretty cool. All right. That opening number, PJ, who we got there?
Jefferson Starship. We built this city. So Jefferson Starship, American rock band from San Francisco, California, evolved out of the group Jefferson Airplane. They released 8 gold or platinum selling studio albums and had 9 top 40 singles on the Billboard Hot 100 chart.
There you go.
That's
Pretty
solid.
successful
It's not a bad
band there,
resume.
right? Yeah. Our featured friend of the program this week is Cyanic Automation, and Shoots is going to take this.
All right, Cyanic Automation. Their job book is a software tool made for land surveyors to manage and run your business. From customer and job tracking all the way to timesheets and invoicing, Job Book does it all. They have many things going on. COVID-19 screening and management. Cyanic Automation wants to ensure getting back to work post-COVID-19 is as safe as possible. They designed the questionnaire to work with any mobile device. It is short and straightforward, while the app is simple, user-friendly, and an elegant solution to minimize exposure risk. Companies and employees can both use this tool to continue with their everyday tasks and ensure peace of mind. Next up is customer and job management. They work with you to customize your customer relationship management module to fit your requirements. They design the software to work with your processes and ensure that your specifics are met. Man, oh man, I'm having a rough time. Every time you look at me, I get a little distracted.
I have that effect on people.
I know, it's getting me. Timesheet automation. They work with you to customize your timesheet module to your specificities. Oh, that's a tough word. Specificities and requirements. They design the software to work with your processes. The final product becomes an extremely user-friendly, straightforward, and elegant solution. They can design your HSE system. They work with you to customize a health, safety, and environment HSE module that fits your organization. They design this software to work with your processes and fit your requirements, not the other way around. Cyanic Automation strives to improve human productivity and fulfillment at work. Visit cyanicautomation.com to find out more.
Shoots, you earned your paycheck this week right there.
I'm exhausted.
That
Now I'm
was
going to take a
awesome.
nap.
Good job. Good job. All right, time for our weekly pod word. So this is
Ooh.
our first episode of February. Okay, I don't want anybody to be confused. So the pod word for this episode is automation. Makes sense,
I
right?
would've
Goes
said
along. Cyanic automation.
I was going to guess groundhog.
No, that would have been a good one too. Is that one word? I don't know.
I think so. If you're talking about the animal, right?
Could be, yeah.
Groundhog, the animal's just one word.
I think so. I think you're right. We could have used that, but
Nah,
let's
automation.
not confuse.
Automation.
It is. Automation it is. So we have to draw for our January listener prize. So
You got to shake the hat in the camera so everybody knows it's legit.
how's that?
All right. That'll work.
There you go.
Let's see who we got here. Ooh, a former guest of the program.
No.
Yes,
Who is
Mr.
it?
Indiana Gooch.
Oh, he's going to love this.
Zach Gooch. I love it. All right, Zach.
Congratulations,
Yep.
Mr. Gooch.
Congratulations. That'll be $100 Amazon gift card coming your way. So I'll be sure to get your email address and have it sent to you that way. So next month, for all of our loyal listeners, we'll be giving away a watercolor self-portrait painted by Connie Barrett. Check her out on Facebook. She's doing some really cool stuff, focusing on surveyors. And I was really excited when she agreed to donate a personalized painting to the Geoholics podcast. So that's going to be a really cool gift next month. So it pays to listen, I guess, is where I'm going with this.
And we're still not eligible.
No. No. If you want one, you got to pay Connie.
How do I know, Connie?
All right, let's catch up with the boys. PJ, what's up, man?
All right, I want to make this super quick, but I have to touch on this. I know we talk about football all the time. Obviously, Super Bowl this weekend on Sunday. My Kansas City Chiefs, very fittingly, today, 1 year ago, February 2nd, Kansas City Chiefs win Super Bowl LIV. So, going to run it back this weekend and super excited. We talked a little bit before the show about Baby Goat, a.k.a. Patrick Mahomes. So, excited to watch him and take home our third Super Bowl. A little cocky there, but had to.
We'll see what happens.
Well, how confident are you? We talked about this bet last week. What are you thinking?
I'm in on everything.
You're in on it?
I'm in on
Just a
anything.
Lego set versus Pink Whitney. All
yep.
right. But if they cover the line, is the ISS on the table?
Nah, I can't do that. That's too much. That's too much.
Hudson was very excited about the possibility.
You can't
of that.
talk me into that.
I said maybe you can borrow it and then give it back to him after you build it.
There you go.
To go off of what Jake normally talks about, that SpaceX stuff today.
That was cool.
I was watching it and then it exploded, and immediately. I'm like, oh shit. And then the guy that like comes on with the calmest voice. He's like, this is just
This
a
is a
test.
good thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's like, we got all the data. It's just a test. And I was like, you are so much calmer than I would be at that job.
Well, it's so funny too because it literally, I mean, they just launched those things like nothing, and even in the frame of where it crashed, you can see the 10 ready to go, and it's going to go up here in like a couple of months or something. So those things are so disposable that one crashes, they get what they need, they load it up into the next one, send it off, and they just it's like almost like steps, ladders getting to, and it's just crazy.
Any idea what they were looking at today?
Well, today was the high altitude one.
Okay.
It was like turning it vertical, horizontal, and back.
Well, they
to
did that
vertical,
before,
and-
but now it was just like at a higher altitude this time. I don't quote me on this, but I think it was like 8 kilometers or something.
Gotcha.
And just a real quick note, I hope our video is better than NASA's.
It was awful.
I was on NASA's, and it was like a phone shaking.
Yeah, it
the
was
whole,
terrible.
I was driving me nuts, so I had to
Yep.
switch over to the SpaceX one, and
Yeah.
it was professionally done,
NASA doesn't have the budget we have.
apparently.
The hard part with the SpaceX stream with these ones, they go live like 3 minutes before it starts. So you got to like be sitting, like you have to know it's coming.
Yeah.
Or like, they just
I think
flip it on.
Biden already made the cuts there. on
Well,
NASA.
and, we're going
First thing to go is the camera.
yeah.
our camera work's going to go downhill because Jake's going to leave to take over Bezos' spot.
Yeah.
I suggested him for the job.
Oh man, I'm concerned about my Amazon stock right about now.
It'll be fine.
See what happens.
What about you? What's up?
What's up? Speaking of stock, am I the only one that lost money on AMC and Nokia?
GameStop?
Just about broke even. I had
about broke
entertainment
even.
costs.
So note to self: 1, don't take stock tips from PJ.
I knew you were going to say this.
Two.
The same guy that I made a whole bunch of money on Penn, and you go, why aren't you telling me about this stuff? So I tried to get you in.
If anything seems too good to be true,
It probably
it
is.
freaking is.
Yeah.
Don't fall for it.
That's a saying that holds true.
Exactly.
Yeah, for every person that made $1 million or whatever these stories are, there's a million suckers like us who lost money on it. So it's got to come from somewhere.
We just
gonna
got in
say.
a little bit too late in the game. That's
Yeah.
it. That's
Uh-huh.
it. All right, let's move on. Safety apparel, safety share. Shoots, what you got?
I got the top 4 areas of injury on construction sites: falling, being struck by, caught in, or electrocuted. Those are the top 4. To avoid falling, just a couple of quick tips about each one. Falling, wear personal fall arrest equipment and set up a perimeter protection. Struck by, wear high visibility clothing. Never position yourself between moving and fixed objects. Caught in, never enter an unprotected trench 5 feet or deeper without a protective system in place. An electrocution, locate and identify utilities before starting work and maintain a safe distance away from power lines. Use ground fault surge protectors.
Really good.
Hey, I
Good
tried
timing
to
on that,
tailor
too.
it to, the guests.
Yeah, perfect. Well done. And to go along with that, of course, the Starship or Jefferson Starship song was "Built This City." Tonight's episode we're calling Construction Staking 101. We've got a couple guys with us tonight who have been doing construction staking. Oh my God, for probably combined 50 years, I have no idea. But I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and if you guys would just give us your name. How long you've been serving, who you work for, what you do, and here's the funny part, what your autobiography would be called. So, Brandon, I'm going to let you go first, buddy.
Oh, well, Kent, you said earlier, what did we say before the podcast about it's the true meaning of life is making friends and adding value. So now I just realized Jake and I can't be friends because I'm a 49ers fan. So last year was brutal, a great year. And then Garoppolo just wasn't the guy I thought he was going to be. But anyway,
One pass.
One pass. Anyway, Brandon Jones, I've been graduate high school in 94, was going to go on and be a math teacher or a civil engineer, but dodged that bullet. And went ahead and got my associate's degree, grew up in a little town in northern Arizona, and I worked for Navajo County, the Public Works Department, got on with the survey crew in a summertime job and fell in love with it. And I moved out here in 1997 from Holbrook, Arizona is where I was living, and got on with Stanage and Truitt Engineering right before they sold to Agra and then AMEC. And anyway, just worked my way up the ranks. Became a partner of a firm in 2003 and became licensed in 2009. Took over the department and just recently resigned from that company and started my own business, Benchmark Surveying, here in October of last year.
October of last year. That's awesome. Everything going good on that? You staying busy?
Yeah, very busy. it's expensive in case you didn't know that already. But you know,
I tried that once.
it's the managing of the, you know, the peaks and the valleys. It's like, oh, you know, shit, we don't have enough people to. Oh, what are we going to do tomorrow? You know, that's how construction is. But I think that's one of the things we've got callous to, is that it's very cyclical. Usually, when you're worrying about work at noon, by 4 o'clock, you don't have enough people for the next day. So
that's so true. So true. If everybody had like 3 of our next guests on their payroll, they'd be fine. Tell us about, no, before we go, Brandon, what's your autobiography going to be called?
Wow. I think you spoiled that one on me too quick, but it's probably, I don't know. That's
okay. Well, what's the last thing you ate?
What about high stakes?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, I'm very nostalgic. I was out in the field and it reminds me. So I stopped by to get a soda, and there was Vienna Fingers, which are like the cookies.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't even remember the last time I had those, but
yeah.
Maybe then it's nostalgia. Maybe that's
There you go. I love those things. Jason, tell us about you, man.
I started surveying in 1997 back in Illinois. Started off as an instrument operator. Built my way up in the construction field. Had a real good mentor back in Illinois at V3. And here I am today, 24 years later now, being the best I could be as a construction surveyor. Basically, I just, what do I do all the time? That's just strictly putting in sticks in the ground.
Yeah. I'll plug Jason a little bit. We were talking before the show. I've known Jason for about 20 years, and we met working for V3 in Chicago, and then I moved out here with V3 in 2005. Jason came out here and helped on a couple projects, some big staking projects with us, and just always stayed in touch. Previous firm we were both at, Bowman. Yep. Jason's still at Bowman. And we were needing somebody bad, and I'm like, okay, the best construction staking party chief I know is Jason Rogers. Let's get him. So we moved him out here, and absolute rock star as far as that goes. We got a good perspective here. We have Brandon, who's been managing survey groups and construction projects and field crews, and Jason, who's out there, pounding sticks in the ground every day, dealing with contractors and everything like that. So we're gonna have a really good conversation here. So the general topic of this episode is construction staking, as I mentioned. So this discussion, we'll basically include the kind of the life cycle of a construction staking project, and really just kind of what it takes to be successful at this type of work, because it's probably some of the most challenging stuff we do. Let's get into it. The project kickoff. Brandon, I'm going to start with you on this. The importance of the contractor proposal language when it comes to construction staking projects.
I think scope is the number one, I think, killer. And there's different ways of approaching it, but I've always done my best to be absolutely as thorough as I can on the scope, because so many times it comes down to the cutthroat fees, and I've been guilty of that too as well. But when you look future questions down the road of managing scope or change orders, that is the biggest thing. So I don't get too caught up in the legal language of it. I haven't, and that's just been dumb luck, I guess, because I've just worked with good contractors and good clients and good firms and owners that have, I haven't been screwed over on. But scope items are something, and really relaying what's happening in the field. A lot of times the scope is put together by someone in an office who thinks this is when they need blue tops every 25 feet. When you show up on a site, they're just going to want them every 50, or they want sewer stakes every 75. You get on site, they're going to ask for 25 for intervals. So those are the things I try and help a lot of clients rewrite their scope, make suggestions, or redline their scope and send it back to them. And usually they take it as pretty valuable feedback. So.
And let's face it, a lot of times, you can have the best written scope or the best written contract, and what ends up happening is you end up signing the contractor's contract anyways, which basically says you're going to do whatever we want you to do for this amount of money, unfortunately. So, but still, I think it's really important to have very clear and concise contract or proposal language, especially when it comes to scope. And Jason, you're kind of on the short end of the stick on this part of the conversation, because you got the guys in the office that are preparing these proposals, and they're like, this should only take this long. This should only take this long. This is the way I'm looking at this. And then, you know, they win the job. Jason, you're our guy. It's all yours. And you don't really get looped into the contract portion of it.
No, and I think sometimes the office tends to not put their party chiefs in the right position sometimes. You know, they may bid the work on one party chief and then another party chief gets out there to do it.
Yep.
They may not be as fast. They may not be as accurate. So then that pushes the budget and or the scope and like, hey, why did it take you 40 hours to do, you know, 200 steaks?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Absolutely. That happens all the time. Just like number one reason why it's so hard to make money at this stuff, you know. But that's why we're having this conversation. Let's talk about relationship building. So Jason, on the field side, you know, talk about the importance of, you know, building a relationship with the superintendent right from the get-go.
Yeah, I've always, from day one, I always introduce myself. I get on there on the site. I ask him what his needs are. I explain myself and how I work to be able to then kind of work it to one hand washes the other type of thing. So I know what his needs are. Hey, some things aren't going to be as possible. But this way, when it comes down to it, he can work with you to get the contractor not to maybe do every 25 feet, to maybe be able to stake it every 50 feet on things. And when that happens, that's just a good rapport, especially when something does go bad. He's more likely to be on your side.
Yep, and building that rapport right from day one, like you say, is priceless. Absolutely. So, Brandon, you on the let's talk about, you know, building out those relationships, you know, during the negotiation of the contract and that type of thing. So, you know, you're dealing with the project managers of the general contractors a lot.
Yeah, and I think I echo what Jason said. That communication in the beginning. I mean, when I was taking notes as rough answers, communication almost comes up every time, and I think a lot of it is so much can get lost in the translation of what's being requested, especially for someone who's not familiar with what is actually needed in the field. But when your crew chief can head a lot of that off, you know, in the field as far as that communication. What I learned as a coming up the ranks is those people you're working alongside in the field will one time probably be calling the shots, or they're going to be the guy making the decisions. And those relationships did me so much good throughout my career as we coming out of the recession. For a lot of those people I'd worked alongside and communicated with, and not just showing up to say, hey, I'm here to do X, Y, Z, and leave, and not try and get them what they want. You know, that's a tough balance. The crew chief is a tough job because you do have a contract and a scope and a boss, you know, an expectation, but you've got a client, a contractor here who is trying to get his scope and keep his boss happy. So that's a good balance, I think, of a good crew chief is like the guy out there communicating with. On my end, that's the big thing. A lot of the guys I'm dealing with now are guys I worked alongside and appreciated my effort at that time.
Yep.
You know, that's what we really try and preach to our crew chiefs is like, don't go out there and just tell a guy where to go and how to get there. And I'm not doing that. Screw you. I mean, because when sometimes they're calling the shots and they remember that.
Yeah, they can make your life absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. No, I think one of the, you know, the moral of that story is just don't burn any bridges, you know. Absolutely.
Never.
That's right.
No question.
That's right.
Project execution. So I think, you know, construction staking is probably some of the riskiest work that a company can do. Brandon, what are some ways that, you know, just based on your experience, ways that you can kind of mitigate that risk right from the get-go?
One of the things we try to adopt is 2-man crews regardless. I mean, we, you know, in the recession, it was tough because budgets just didn't account for it. But what we realized was that, you know, the loss in productivity and the risk was just not worth it. And so we've been really big on 2-man crew, one for the efficiency, but for safety, especially in the summer. We've had people just collapse on sites, you know, and they've been by themselves. Or, you know, I talked with Tim Evans today and couldn't make it today, but he was like running down the side of the mountain from Cave Creek because he wasn't feeling good. And he's like, I gotta get somewhere where, in case I fall over, it's not a coyote that's, you know, eating me. It's someone that can save me. And so, also we kind of, I try and keep an open door policy with my employees, and basically it's a safety. If you feel it's risky, then I don't question it. You know, I mean, I don't ask people to play in traffic if they don't feel comfortable. I don't ask them to go down and get an invert of a trench if you don't feel comfortable. I mean, there's ways around that stuff, and a lot more people who are less concerned about safety that are willing to take those risks. But for me, I am a family guy, and I know everybody else is a family. It's like get home. So
Yep.
it's very much, I don't question if you don't feel safe, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of like that stop work authority.
Right.
Yep. How about you, Jason? What on the field side specifically? What are some things that you can do or that you've learned to do to mitigate risk?
Yeah, I mean, my mentor, Harry Sulik, he pretty much taught me from day one. He's like, you can't fix stupid. I mean, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Yep.
So I do look at the stop, look and listen, see what's around you. Don't just jump down into a trench without looking if it's been wet or if there's construction next to it, if there's machines running. You just never know. It's always being alert. I mean, the main word is alert.
Yep.
If you're not alert, that's how accidents are going to happen.
No question. Situational awareness is absolutely key. And something else I want to bring up here is having two-man crews. Absolutely. Huge believer in that, especially on construction side or when working in public right away. The thing is, I mean, both of you guys have been doing this for 20 plus years. You get it. You inherently know what to look for because you've been doing it for so long. Lots of times you might be paired up with a young guy who's really there just as a second set of hands that you need to also be looking out for.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It's not even just a second set of hands. It's also to identify all sorts of safety. If whether you're just telling him, hey, keep an eye on my back side, let me take care of this. And it goes back to the efficiency of safety, because if you're not and you're trying to do everything yourself, you're not going to be as efficient. You're going to be tired more, and then accidents happen.
Yep. And it's like the first thing that you should talk about every single day. When you get in the truck, talk about something safety related. I know sometimes we take things for granted, unfortunately, and it kind of gets overlooked, whatever. But, just get in the habit of having that conversation, especially if you're working with somebody who's pretty green, like Brandon said, I mean, the goal is everybody gets home safe at night to their families. So let's move on to communication. Again, I mean, this is probably something we're going to talk about on each of these points of the project. But, we talked about communication, with the superintendent. And one of the things here is, again, going back to, when we prepare these proposals for these projects, we're taking, in most cases, a perfect scenario in mind, but that's never the case. There's always changes, always unforeseen, hurdles that need to be overcome, blah, blah, blah. But lots of times, I think the superintendent is either going to make or break the project for you, because if that superintendent is not really good at his job, maybe he's new to that role, whatever, that makes your job or our job really, really difficult. And just like you guys were mentioning in the beginning, you propose the project to take it one way. The superintendent, he's got it in his mind that he wants it done a completely different way. How do you guys deal with that situation, Brandon?
Well, I think it's important to, in the beginning, as surveyors, especially in construction, to understand that there's two things. One, once you understand these things, it's easier to communicate it. But we're the only trade basically that's on the site from start to finish. Trades come and go, but the surveyor is there from raw dirt to paved streets. And what that means is that every trade needs you. Every you do become the most necessary tool on the site. And the sooner that, that's riding this border of arrogance, but you have to kind of get to a point where, listen, this can't go on without me. So if things are getting, heated or unnecessary and they're not paying their change orders or whatever, you have to be able to, that's what I like about this side of it, is understanding that I know what those guys are going through in the field. I understand that they're being asked to do ridiculous things. And so that communication back to me, as well as the communication in like Jason said, if you head that off with the communication, a lot of that stuff gets squashed in the beginning. It's the guys that are out there leaving it, coming and going. I showed up to do my scope, and every time I got to jump over here to do one extra thing, I'm sending you a bill. I mean, all those things will just start to build and build and build, and then becomes just a toxic work site, which is killer on the budget. It's killer on guys like Jason who are out there just trying to get the job done, and everybody's angry. So I think it's, like you said, it starts in the beginning, but I think it's important for surveyors, especially in construction, to understand that, you are the most valuable tool. I mean, that's really some place you got to get to.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important, every single day you show up on a construction site, check in with the superintendent in the morning.
Yeah.
Check in whenever that time is that you're leaving. Just make sure that he tells you, "Yep, we're good, we're good." Otherwise, if you leave without doing that, chances are they're going to be like, "Oh, you didn't do this. You got to come back. You didn't do this. You got to come back." And then all of a sudden, things go sideways. So it's good to try to avoid that at all costs. A couple things like project control, for example. We know the importance of that. Field notes, office calcs. Jason, talk about project control. What are some things you like to do when setting project control?
I try to do it up. I noticed here in Arizona that they tend to use GPS a lot. I come from the Midwest, which is total station. So when I set my control with GPS, I tend to set it in volumes of being able to set up my total station without having to set up GPS every time. Some things are just a little bit quicker. I try to do it in enough angles, one in the center of the site, 3 or 4 on the property corners, just so that there's all aspects. I try to set it up higher so that if things get in the way, fences, machines are parked, so that you always have a good line of sight.
Yep. And as far as how do you keep these contractors from running over these things? Sometimes it's just unavoidable. Any tricks or anything to?
Most of the time I try to set like crosses, something that's not just a rebar in the middle of the dirt where there's a lot there. I'll tend to put on things on permanent things, concrete bolts or something. Maybe fire hydrants, things that aren't going to move at all. So that way it's always going to be there. They're not going to run a fire hydrant. I mean, they could, but most of the time you can set it on permanent things where it's not just rebar in the crown. And if you do, you basket it up as best you can and you communicate to the superintendent. This is my control. Anything in that color, in that pink, keep them away with it. The more they run it over, the less I'm going to be productive for you because now I got to come back. And normally superintendents will tend to talk to the contractors and make sure they can stay away from as best they can.
Yeah, as long as you have that respectful correspondence, that communication right from the beginning, that just gets everything off on the right foot for sure. Brandon, do you got anything else you want to add to control, or do you want to talk about field notes?
Oh, you can write biohazard on the left too, or danger, toxic gas or something. We released I think it's important too, when you're setting your crew chief up to succeed, is understanding the project boundaries, the project limits. A lot of times the guys set control points and there's a future basin going in there, or that's part of the R&R and the improvements. Don't set it there. So definitely agree with Jason as far as setting control that's accessible both with the level and with your GPS. What's a lot of I know this is a further down discussion items, but it's getting to a point now where a lot of contractors are running their own machine control, they're running their own GPS. And so they're requesting a lot of these control points on the site. And so it's actually been a benefit because that's been a big struggle, pushing efficiency about, come on, get out there, get the job done. Everyone's running but having those guys running their own, I didn't like it at first, but now I realize that, if they're coming off, they're going to see the things that you skipped, or if you didn't take your time, somebody else is behind you. You got a little bit of a safety net there, but it's good to just have it start good from the beginning. That way, same thing. It just turns into a good relationship and there's trust involved right from the start.
Yeah. And I mean, I know some of the sites, like even sites that I've worked on with Jason, where they're super tight and compact, like these apartment complexes. They're just stuffing on a small parcel, underground parking. And it is probably one of the most chaotic work environments one could possibly be exposed to. It's freaking insane. It takes a certain kind of person to deal with those kind of stresses for sure.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brandon, talk about field notes. I'm not sure where you stand on field notes. I'm kind of an old school guy. I think that, handwritten field notes in a field book is something that is priceless, basically.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, starting in the mid 90s, that's the way we were taught. We definitely, as we grew from time to time, that stuff becomes a little less. But I just got some from one of our crews we have, and it was my nostalgia, and I wanted to kiss the guy, but I didn't kiss him. But it was one of those things where it's been a while since we've seen good field notes. The problem is that they just take time, and on a construction site, it really, you have to, your manager and the guy has to be way out ahead of that. We're breaking ground on Wednesday and being out there 2 days before and giving someone the time to do it. That's been the biggest thing is time becomes an issue, but then all it turns into nothing but problems at the end. It costs you more money in the end of not having good field notes.
True.
But I am a big believer. Nothing like flipping over the field book to be like, hey, here's a this guy set a benchmark on his power pole or cotton spindle, and it's still there, you know, and and you know it's solid, and so yeah, I mean, I'm a big proponent of it. Although we did, you know, there is times where you're just like, you're still out there setting control, you're still out there running a level loop, or there's the guys that come back and say, I closed that level loop within 3,000ths, you know, and I'm like, you're running a linker rod.
Yeah.
It's always doing, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And then sometimes, I mean, the field notes, I guess this is another way to look at it. I mean, that's kind of like your only, I don't know, like if you get accused, like back charges and stuff like that, you know, we can go down a whole other path about that. But sometimes the field notes are the only record you have that could save you for certain kinds of back charges, you know, that you might be getting accused of. So I mean, I personally think field notes are just, like I say, invaluable. What do you think, Jason? Are you on that same?
I think for some of it is, but some things it's not. I mean, I think with all the technology we have today, the data collector is always, your job file is going to give you every record that whatever you did. So if you stake something wrong, you can download that job and it's there. Now running a level circuit, yeah, all that, your station setup, what you set up, your HIs, yeah, that's all field stuff that's going to be good. But if it's, hey, a manhole got staked wrong, that's going to come back to your TSC3. That's going to come back in your job folder to be able to see that, which you would be able to see.
What about what you can't track? I mean, I guess you can. I mean, when I was doing a lot of construction staking at Bowman, I mean, in my mind, I was almost getting to the point, because I mean, CYA, it's like CYA was what you were focused on every single day, because these contractors are just like nitpicking you. Anytime something's wrong, blame the surveyor. So, I mean, I'm like, it almost gets to the point where this isn't tracked in the data collector. You know, what you write on the lath, you know, cut 4.35, that's not tracked in the data collector. So you never know what's getting written on the lath. So I'm like, it's almost getting to the point where you got to take a picture of every single freaking lath. So if they come back and accuse you of something, you can be like, nope, here's that lath. This is what was written on it. You know, that type thing.
That is tough. You can't, you definitely can't control that. I mean, because most of the time that lath is gone.
Yeah. Yep. But I mean, if you had a picture of it, you know, you'd have that to fall back on. What do you think, Brandon? Am I crazy?
Well, I think it's all a good theory, but you're right. It's always something we always battle with that. And I think a lot of it is, even with the pictures, I mean, we've had notes of literally like, you know, here's the stake. Oh, you just made that in your truck before you walked over here. You know, like it's just never ending. Even with field notes, you know, even your data collector file, the guys are going to think they don't know enough about the technology to understand that I didn't just recreate it. It has a timestamp on it, et cetera. But we got to the habit of like, hey, cut 435, and then we wouldn't leave the stake until it was repeated. I mean, we had an instance where we staked a bore pit, was probably 30 feet deep on an asphalt, a 10 and a 15-foot offset on asphalt. There's no elevation change, or maybe 100 between the two. The guy was busted it by a foot. Well, when they covered the 10-foot offset with dirt and used the 15, and of course, which one do you think was wrong? The 15-foot offset was wrong, right?
Of course.
Dug down, bored the sewer line a foot off, and so. But I mean, even running out there and sweeping it off, and was like, we found it. Like, hey, this is like, well, you had one that was wrong. Unfortunately, that's what. So I mean, even though we had proof that, like, guys, if you see a discrepancy, say something. That goes back to even the communication, like Jason was talking. If you build that rapport with those contractors and you answer the call of stress of like, hey, something's not looking right. Because the first time they say it doesn't look right, and you tell them, stop bothering me, they don't call you anymore. They build it for your stakes. But having those good relationships of like, hey, Brandon, something's not looking funny, and making it your first priority to get out there, only to find, even if you find out nothing's wrong, those guys will continually appreciate that, because they're trying to keep moving and stay productive too. They don't, you know. But then again, I've seen head walls 12 feet in the air because they missed a standpipe stake, you know, the standpipe next to it. They got switched around and built this head wall. I wish I had a picture of it driving on the road. It was 10 feet in the air, head wall for an irrigation, because one stake for a standpipe, it's supposed to be 10 feet in the air. You know, it's got, and yeah, there was a stake that said it, but it was the wrong one. But at that point, it's like, you know, you drop a stake, like you said, you got a picture of it, but standing over here on this nail now, it's the same, just in the wrong position. So,
yeah. No, it's absolutely so frustrating. You mentioned it. I mean, and absolutely golden rule. If you establish those relationships right from the get-go with the curb guys, with, you know, all the subcontractors on the site, and if they see something wrong and they like you, they're not going to hesitate to, you know, ping you and be like, hey, you know, Jason, Brandon, whatever. I think the stake's wrong. You know, give you a chance to go out there and fix it. Nobody's perfect, you know.
Yep. No, and I think that when I was running a crew, that was a lot of like, here's my number, call me for questions. Don't call me for scheduling. That was always a big no, committing to things before. I didn't know what was going on for everybody else, but that opening that line of communication, and it meant for some phone calls I couldn't do anything about really, but at the same time, they knew I was trying, and there was I was extending my olive branch to them, and they appreciated it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Brandon. I'd rather them call me first than my boss first. If there's something wrong, call me, because he don't need to deal with that first. Call me first. Maybe I can remember in my head. Maybe I can work with it. Maybe I can just figure it out right from where I'm at in my data collector. Then if there's not, and there's not enough proof there, then I'm going to say, hey, Doug or whoever, Kent, hey, I'm going to have to go out and take a look at this. Something's wrong. It's not jiving. Versus them just going and building it or calling the office and then, you blowing a gasket first.
Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely. Totally agree. Let's talk just a little bit about, office calcs. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I think, again, this goes back to communication. You got the guy in the office who, has never seen the site before. He's just in there, snapping coordinates on offsets, blah, blah, blah. Again, I think it's important that, Jason, for you, an example, it's important that you have open lines of communication with whoever's doing the calcs in the office and be like, hey, I need this. I don't need all that. Just give me this, and that's all I need.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, we've came a long way, like you said, with technology. We don't need every point calc for us. With technology, we can just create our lines. We can do our own station offset. Give me the center line. I'll pull the offsets in the field, and it's quicker. Sometimes it's way quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. But you get those guys that are literally, let's see, Michael Plummer? What was his name that we had on here? And he's like, you got these guys out there that are just simply appliance operators. They don't know what they're doing. They just go out there with a point sheet and coordinates in their data collector, and they're just setting points. They don't know why they're doing it, but they're just doing it.
Yeah, I call them button pushers.
Appliance operators. We've all seen it, right? And it's a dangerous place to be. That's for sure. Obviously, when in the heat of the battle, you're always looking for ways to be more efficient. And I think we've actually already probably, beat this one into the ground. It just boils down to having those open lines of communication with the superintendents and everybody else that's involved with the site. If you are constantly communicating with them, that's going to save everybody headaches. Like lots of times, I know, Jason, we've had this happen a number of times where somebody would call and be like, I want you to stake, whatever, this section of curb. And then you go out there and it's like they aren't even close to being ready to stake that section of curb. There's dirt, there's this, there's that. Those things can be avoided. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely I try to ask before I leave the site, what's next in your line?
Yeah.
Give me that advance notice so that I can have it ready before I get there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You got anything to add to that, Brandon?
Well, I say Jason's speaking my language over there. We ran at the peak of the stuff. I ran 24 crews just doing construction staking. We had 2 CAD operators. So, I've been interviewed. I have interviewed at places they got more CAD technicians than they have survey crews, and it's like, don't call anybody. It's fine. You don't even need your calculator. And to me, that's doing a disservice to the guy in the field who's trying to make a career of this, needs to learn. But we provide support, and some things are necessary. But like I said, if you're calculating a 2-foot offset for everything and you get up there, it turns out 2-foot out doesn't work, and they need a 5-foot offset, the guy's got to figure it out anyway. So we're big on providing office calcs with minimal control and sending them out with a set of plans. Listen, that was a big eye opener for me, recognizing everything, as silly as it sounds, was perpendicular and parallel. Very simple and nothing you couldn't do with a right triangle. Once you understand those simple concepts, you just need some center line control, or you just need a few property corners. And so we're big on providing that support when it's needed. And I always will challenge them to say, you really need this? Why don't you think about it for 10 minutes and then call me back and see if you need it? And a lot of times the callback is, hey, I got to figure it out. I just did this and this and this. And we're big on pushing them. Hey, make a decision in the field, and then let's talk about it. Because chances are they're not going to construct it in the next 30 minutes. Well, sometimes that's the case, but chances are we can get out there and but give them an opportunity. That's how you learn. And then, just being big on plan rating is so important, I think, for these construction guys. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's talk about the qualities of what makes a good construction staking surveyor. What qualities do you think those folks possess? And Jason, you go first. What does it take to be good at what you do?
It definitely takes a calm mind first. You have to be calm. You can't go out there and just with everybody attacking you and be able to try to just gung ho on everything. Second would be being able to see differences, find differences, to be able to know when something is wrong. If your calc in the field is different than what's in the office. So quality, he has to have quality. He's got to be, I think, quick thinking as well. Those are probably the three top that I would have to say that has to make a good party chief. And he has to be able to show efficiency. He's got to be efficient. He has to know when he can have that tolerance of error versus when he has to be exact right on.
Yeah, really good point. Really good point. Brandon, what do you got to add to that?
Yeah, I think obviously communication, like we said, we beat that to death. But I think the calmness Jason talked about is very important. And I think that's a lot about when I was thinking about this topic is that it becomes the black sheep because it can be such a rough, it's just a rough industry out there. But it's only as rough as you make it. I think a lot of the communication is, you get up there, it's probably going to be a war zone, especially those apartment complexes. I mean, a lot of times we're like, I got out there and they're asking for this again, and this pile is over here. And I'm like, that's a construction site, that's what we learned real quick is that, you're just either bred for it or you're not. I mean, I've made a living doing construction staking, and even though I feel like it's been the black sheep of the surveying industry, you're not a surveyor, you're a construction staker. And that's always drove me nuts. But I think I wanted to kind of be that crew chief in the beginning that was kind of different than everyone. He wasn't the guy he wasn't the drug addict. He wasn't the guy who was in and out of there and didn't want to do the things that helped the project move forward, was on there to do his job and to leave. And so that's one thing. The other thing is making decisions on the fly is very important. I think for us, being well-rounded and understanding when you're doing rough grade on a site, you have a set of tolerances, both vertically and horizontally. That's the biggest thing I think that the crew chiefs for construction staking don't get enough credit for, is that you literally can leave one task on one job site, drive to another, and you're staking concrete or you're staking building corners, and everything you just did is completely different. It's different equipment, it's different tolerances, it's just different procedures. And so for a new guy, they're just like, we're just slamming hubs in here? Nope. Get the tacks. What are those? Nope, we're doing this. Nope, measure it again, measure it again, measure it again. And I think that makes a good chief as someone who's well-rounded enough in the skills to understand that you got to know what your tolerances are, what your offsets need to be, offsets right looking upstream, just understanding how a site's going to get constructed, I think makes a good chief, because it saves a lot of the calls, and I don't know what to do in this case. Most of the good ones, you send them on your worst jobs with no budget. That's I always hated is the more I got, it's like, why am I doing this? This guy's doing curb staking those tangent roads. You got me over here doing these stupid roundabouts. It was always like, but that's where it got to the point, is I was the guy they could trust, and I was the guy that was not going to make the mistake. And so for me, it's a well-rounded individual that understands all aspects from start to finish of the site.
So the better you are at your job, the harder they make it for you. That's what I hear.
Yeah,
so,
and it's just,
I would be with the guy with the tangent stuff.
Yeah.
No roundabouts for me.
I think, I agree 100% with everything you guys said. And the bottom line is, you got to take pride in what you do. Whether you're staking, curb or rough grade, or it doesn't matter what you're doing. Take pride in what you're doing. And a lot of the stuff that both of you guys described comes from experience and comes from having good mentoring. Jason, you mentioned your mentor, and I know who your mentor was, and he set you off on the right path. He taught you things right, in the beginning of your career. So it's important for guys like you and Brandon to mentor that next generation for sure.
Yeah, it's very important. Ken, I was just going to say that when you said mentoring, that's another thing we struggle with is, guy, when they come back and say, hey, this guy, I couldn't get him off his phone all day. Well, if that was me, my mentor would grab my phone and throw it in the trench, grab a shovel full of dirt and bury it. Or if I was breaking hubs, he run over and kick my bucket and hubs would scatter everywhere. I have to clean it up. And, and that's a little extreme. Yeah. And I was luckily had thick enough skin, but just the understanding of you guys got to keep everyone engaged, and that, because they end up being button pushers, because the second, and this, especially in this current market conditions, the second they run that GPS, someone's giving them a truck and keys and calling them a crew chief and sending him out there, and I think they're missing a lot of that. We used to say, hey, you need to you need to swing a hammer for 6 months first, because there's an art to that. And you can't teach anybody how to swing a hammer until you've completely learned how to swing a hammer. So
I don't want to use the buzzword hazing, but maybe a little bit of ribbing is what.
A little bit, I mean,
nothing inappropriate or dangerous, but
exactly,
just a little something to keep them honest.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about project controls. Brandon, talk about managing scope creep, schedule, and budget. You're the man in charge now, so.
Well, scope creep, I think is, again, it's communication. My relationships currently in this new venture are with people that I feel comfortable with. One, I know their scope because I wrote it for them. There are people who understand that there's a level of service that I'm going to try and provide, and it doesn't mean it's the best fee, but it could be the best service. And even and that service doesn't change. If I win a job and I'm the low bid, they understand that, hey, I'm going to get the same amount of service. Just know that the next project you probably aren't going to get this fee because, and that's tough because every client has a little bit more of a PETA factor, right? A pain in the ass factor where you have to figure in this guy's super needy, or he always hires these crappy contractors to do his job, and I know there's going to be extra work. And so it's a big challenge because you have to manage. You got to win the job, but you got to so your fee has to be where everyone's looking for the low guy, and then you also have to cover yourself. So what I try and do is ride that fence and not be the cheap guy with the cheap scope and look to make it up in change orders, because it's all I hear is bad stuff about constantly being changed with, oh man, I got another back charge. I had to go across the street to stake a property corner, and it was just one, and I got a $600 charge. The guy was out there, it didn't take any time, So we do a lot of things like that, and they don't get billed for it. And so that when I do send the change order, somebody understands that, hey, this was legit staking, or it's the communication up front. So I try and lose, a lot of times a home builder will have a project superintendent on site, and he wants everything to go through him. And so the contractor will get this list of things, and then he'll call me, and it's like the whisper game, right? You go around the circle, and by the time it gets to me, it's not exactly what he wanted, right? So it goes back to Jason, like you said, being the communicator in the field. But if it looks like it's an out of scope item, or it looks like it is extra, I don't even march out there until I've got approval with somebody. And I'm not big about sign this, need approval. It's more just a conversation of have those relationships with those clients to say, hey, this isn't in my scope, or this is an extra. And a lot of times it's like, well, I'm going to send them the bill for it, or they don't need that. I'll just tell them to do this and this. And so a lot of it can be headed off with, we just got called to be out first thing tomorrow morning to set blue tops for a valley gutter that's connecting two pieces of concrete, and it's not in my scope. And really what the concrete guy is looking for someone to blame if I go out there and they don't want to be responsible for the concrete. And so I called him and said, listen, I'm going to connect the A to B. That's what your guy could do with a string line. And basically he's like, yeah, no, you're right. I don't need you guys doing that. So it saved me having to write him a change order, not to mention take on the liability of $10,000 in concrete by not getting enough sleep tonight, or calculating my slope the wrong way, or something silly. But I avoid those type of deals. So we do a lot of things, a lot of small things, and don't send back charges, or not back charges, but change orders, so that when I do send them, they're substantial enough, they understand, and then we still end up doing fine, as long as our change orders get paid. That's always a challenge there too.
Yep, it's all again, it all circles back to communication, right?
Yeah.
You could have gone out there and set those stakes for that guy in that valley gutter, but instead you made a phone call and like, hey, come on, they can do this. You don't need me to come out there and
Right.
do that for you. So that was a great example of that. And of course, when the scope changes or tends to change, that's probably going to throw off the schedule. It's going to throw off the budget. So you just kind of have to keep in mind that when one thing changes, that triple constraint, all those things are affected. Jason, what do you want to add to that?
That's what I kind of was, when you talk on Brandon there, was the change orders of in the field. I don't mind, as I tend to see the scopes. I actually have Doug print, and look at them. So that way I know what I'm actually going out there, where I know if it's not in our budget or in our change order. And, if there's 3 or 4 stakes knocked down and he's like, hey, can you restake those? As long as I'm there and I have time, I just do it. It's not there. Now, there's 20 missing. Now that's a change order. Now you're going to get restaked for that.
Yeah.
But I do think that part of it is the party chiefs should take responsibility to read through the scope, take that initiative so that they know that
sure.
they're not doing things that they may think it's in the scope. And now that billing of they're doing curb stakes, and all of a sudden he's asking them to do this, and he's like, oh, well, we're getting paid to do it, and now it's getting billed in there and not communication. So I think, that'll cut off half that problem of your schedules.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. I think we've talked about quality control and things that that we can do on these construction sites to, to promote that. I guess. Is there anything, Jason, you want to add to like quality control?
It's kind of hard, like I said. I mean, without taking pictures or little video of everything you do, you can only do the best you can, and it's your word against somebody else's word, and just keeping as best notes as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what we try and do a lot of times is we're working on. It's always a work in progress. I think finding different ways, trying different things. We try and locate all of our points after we stake it, we shoot it, and that can be a little bit more tiresome because you've also got to. That's a little bit extra time, but there's got to be someone in the field that could say, hey, but we've caught a lot of things that way. I think a lot of it is telling your chief, all right, let's just stop and just look down the line you just did. I mean, it is really that simple from just looking up from your data collector, looking up for a minute and just being like, okay, there's a hydrant here and you got to, you have an offset. Now you're putting the hydrant in the street. I mean, just little things like that can be, having a good mentor is always good to say, let's just stop for a second or let them make the mistake and then say, okay, what did we do wrong here? There was so many steps pre-GPS that we did,
Yep.
Pulling steel chain across the street. I mean, just all these things that that were assignments, going over level notes on the drive back to the office that, that are hard because people just feel like it's, they don't understand it. And I think the volume of work we get going sometimes is like, it's a few $1,000 to buy this and buy that. Well, you start tarnishing the relationships. Back charges are expensive, but it also raises the red flag of, your abilities and your crew's abilities. And then that affects hey, you got a job, sure. But do they really want to deal with that again on the next job,
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned, back charges. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but they happen, unfortunately. And hey, we're all human. We all make mistakes. Sometimes we get hit with back charges and we just have to take our medicine on that stuff, but it's, I think, unbelievably valuable to accept responsibility. Like if a mistake is made and there's a back charge involved, you just got to you got to be accountable for that.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that's, I could tell a story about a very expensive one that happened a few days before Christmas years ago. And we're literally standing on the side of the road, looking at a half mile of concrete that had the first layer of pavement down that was 3.5 feet off at the end of it, and so into a dirt field with future improvements of who knows when it's coming down the road. We'll probably just get topoed and a taper. But I mean, it was all these discussions of like doing the right thing, just on a new client. We just picked up this client and it was first big job with them. And so I was just like, man, and literally like Christmas, I mean, this one ended up being north of $100,000 for us because we just couldn't, it was a claim, but it was as simple as just not checking in at the end, and that was one of the things that was a painful discussion because we met with the town about leaving it. The town said, nope, it's not per plan, rip it all out. I mean, it was just, anyway, but if I look back now, that was probably 5 to 6 times that amount of work that we ended up getting.
Yep.
That's a big picture look at it, right? I mean, and that's the quality of a good crew chief too. Is big man.
Yep.
This one's on me. I get it, and that takes a lot more. But it's easier for a manager to say, hey, let's learn from this. Let's talk. Let's get everyone together. What happened? And it's not to throw you under the bus or make an example of you. It's let's discuss this and how do we avoid this? What could you have done? What would you suggest? And a lot of times the same assumptions, the same problems that you realize everyone would have made the same mistake, and so it's a feel good for them. It gets expensive, yes, but it's on to the next job, on to the next task. You can't get too worried about those type of problems that you just never can move forward.
Yep. The one thing you mentioned there, do your checks. Do your checks at the beginning of the day, do your checks throughout the day, do your checks at the end of the day. It could save you a lot of heartache for sure. Jason, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things was mentor. You can make a mistake as long as you catch it, and whether you didn't catch it right then, but after going back, a mistake happened and somebody else caught it, you can catch it. You can actually see yourself now what you did wrong, and then you learn from it.
Yeah. And it's just sometimes common sense is worth its weight in gold. You know, I mean, just take a step back and look at it and be like, does this make sense? And if it doesn't, take another look at it, you know?
Yeah, I've
Yeah, and
definitely. Go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, even with my instrument guide now, I mean, there's times we'll be staking curb and stuff like that, and just out of the blue, I'll be like, Phil, 2 feet, and everything's been like Phil 4200s or something,
Yeah.
and he'll be like, huh?
Yeah.
Did you say that right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's
So
just
you're like
those-
almost testing them?
yeah,
That's
just
funny.
a little bit,
Yeah.
just because then it makes him realize and
Yep.
pay attention to what I'm talking.
Well, then you
about.
know he's paying attention.
Exactly.
Or,
Yeah.
for sure.
I love that. That's the hazing, I guess Ryan's
Yeah.
talking about over there. But we actually put a benchmark on the tailgate of our truck, and we would tell the guys, hey, anywhere we go, we got a benchmark, you know. And so same thing, we would put the rod on your foot. I mean, there's always ways to say, or it's upside down, because you see people doing a lot of hand waving, like everything's just going too good. Something's got to be wrong. And so I think those are the things that that's the mentoring aspect of things. You know, I think that there's always something to look at. There's always something to check. You know, this mistake that happened, there wasn't really anything down there, but there was a hydrant. You know, the hydrant was in and it was right. And if he'd just, this should be 20 feet right. Let me just go over here and check it. We would have caught it in it.
Yep.
Just like that. It's that easy.
Yep. It happens, right? It is, but as long as you don't make the same mistake over and over again, you know, you got to learn from those mistakes. That's the key to that. So project closeout, as-built are always an absolute pain in the ass, let's face it. I'm curious what kind of things you guys do to make that not such a pain in the ass. Jason, what about as-built?
Try to just keep up on them in the beginning. You know, while you're out there doing something, if you have that time and it's already put in, there's curb already in, there's hydrants or water valves in, and you're there and you're staking the curb and the hydrants, shoot it as you're going. Just kind of collect it as you're going. I mean, it doesn't take very long to take one shot while you're out there.
Yeah.
I found that that's helped us at Bowman a little bit, just to kind
Yeah,
of
just staying on top of it. Yep. And that also, I mean, that's in a situation where like the same party chief is going back to that job and nobody else is going back. Once you start mixing in a bunch of different party chiefs, things kind of go off the rails a little bit, unfortunately, unless there's amazing communication and amazing field notes and that type of thing. But I totally agree with that.
And one other thing I end up doing is I take my plot sheets, I highlight them in different colors.
Yeah.
This has been as built on this such and such date. This
Yep.
has been done on this such and such a date. That way it keeps record where if somebody else does go out there and they have the folder, they can open that setup of points and they can say, okay, he already staked this. Now it is a restake because somebody else is going out there.
Yep.
So
Yep. Good point. Brandon, what do you got to add to that?
Well, I was hoping you were going to have the answer, Kent, to as-built.
I wish I
always
did,
made
man.
I always make the joke. I pulled up crew chief meeting minutes from 2009 and topic one, and then 20 years later, it's the same thing, you know. And I think it's important what Jason said is that we have this mentality is like, you know, you can think, has it been shot? The best is to just shoot it. But then we ran into the issues of we had 9 valve shots, you know, or had some guy who got crazy and shot a bunch of bends and they forgot to change the code and then they're all valves. So that's always a challenge. And we try our best to put the same crew on every site. And that just, you know, if you're going to be in a service oriented mentality of construction, it's just hard. It's hard to be that guy who's, if you're going to be better than your competition, you can be there tomorrow, or you can be there in an hour, or you're going to take care of what they need. That becomes difficult because a lot of times it's whoever, you know, the guy's probably got the job in his data collector, but he doesn't have a set of prints with him. So he's going to swing by and he's going to shoot. Well, the process is after that, like Jace, you know, you can do all that. If somebody doesn't download it or someone doesn't make it to a set of plans, we'll download. Yeah, everything's in here. We download a file and the whole east side of the site's been shot 100 times and nothing on the west side because so-and-so thought it. I loved hearing the field note aspect comes to that where we used to carry, and we try to now even as a set of plans that's just for as-built, and it's, you know, it's beat up, but it's highlighted on the ends and you know which set it is. And so if it's time to start plotting those onto a good set of plans, you know what to grab, and then it's easy to find out what's missing. I always think that's, you know, we do our best to word it in our proposals of give me 40-hour notice or open trench and I want to shoot it, or we'll make you rip it up, which, you know, is rarely going to happen. But then that also becomes you're getting called at, you know, I got some sewer staking going in Maricopa right now, and they got 25 manholes. Well, I don't want to drive to Maricopa 25 times to shoot a manhole, right? So that's the balance of like, I don't have the budget for that. I can't put the budget in there.
Right.
But at the same time, I want to know those inverts are correct because I got to tell this guy, hey, it doesn't flow one way or the other. So as-builts are always a struggle. We're trying to start, you know, being 3 months old here in business. That was always one of the things that I swore up and down that I would be better at. So we're coming up on our first project, and I'm like, wow, this is quite the time consuming, but anyway, it's always a challenge. I don't have the magic. If I did, I wouldn't have to be here. I would have sold that to every
Yeah,
server.
no doubt, for sure. I mean, as built, I mean, they're going to make or break the project at the end.
Yeah. Well, you say closeout. Sorry, I was going to say
No, it's fine.
closeout. That's it. That's the last taste. That's the last taste the client has in your mouth. And that's.
Yep.
It's like we pay so little attention to it in a project, but then at the end,
and you can't budget enough. Like if you budgeted enough that needed to go in the as-built, you wouldn't win any projects, no doubt about it. And let's talk about communication when it comes to project closeout. I think it's super important here as well, because you definitely want to leave that project with the client having a good taste in their mouth. So you want to communicate with them, maybe even have a discussion about what worked, what didn't, just have that simple discussion with them. And I guarantee you, like Brandon said earlier, that's probably going to be, you're going to get repaid with additional work from that client if you have those discussions.
Yep. And the communication with the contractors too. I mean, I just recently had a project that was a bore on a very busy road, and he was like, "Hey, we're going to slurry," and I'm like, "I can't get out." They were slurrying in the next 30 minutes. I'm supposed to drop everything, and so I just talked through them with, "Hey, are my stakes there? Can you see it? Can you put a tape measure on it? Give me a down to the top of the asphalt."
Yep.
And that relationship is, there's trust involved, and then those guys, so many times those become the enemy in the field with the crew chief, but yet you don't know what kind of relationship that guy has with that owner. He could be the guy who makes or breaks your next project because you made him you made him stop work because you needed to drive out there and shoot it for 5 minutes instead of allowing them to go, but just opening that line of communication. So I think there's ways of going about not having to shoot every single little thing. And that's when you start developing the trust, with the contractors. You can trust the word. I mean, it takes you have to verify that they actually are doing what they're saying, but at the same time, that I think the communication is important as well.
Absolutely. No question. No question. Jason, you got anything else to add to that?
No, not really. He hits it right on the note. I think, like you said, we're walking away for a closeout. If that superintendent can walk away and that party chief, he can say, "I want him back."
Yep.
That's going to win the work. It doesn't matter what the office did.
Yep.
It's whether you have that good rapport. That's what's going to win the work.
Yep. No question. No
Your
question.
lifeline. Crew chiefs are your lifeline out there for sure.
Yep. If you if they ask you to go out for a beer, that's just a bonus, right?
Yeah, right. I've had a couple
After the curb staking is complete.
correct. I had a couple Christmas presents this year from some superintendents. So it was
That's
kinda
awesome.
nice.
That's good.
No, you're doing a good job when that happens. That's for sure. All right, so we've gotten through that, kind of like the life cycle of a project. So with all of that, this is going to be a good one. So why do professional land surveyors insist on racing each other to the bottom when it comes to pricing construction staking projects? Just based on all the risk that's involved, everything we've just talked about, but yet there's still guys out there that are winning this work because they're doing it for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, I was that guy. Yeah, I was that guy. I'm not gonna lie.
That was a
That's
lot of
more on
deep
you
breaths
guys.
right there.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Well, he went there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's probably, again, I go back to my very first statement before we started this conversation. It's probably the riskiest work that we do as surveyors, but yet we have this, I don't know why, but we just race to the bottom as far as pricing this stuff goes, But going back to everything that you guys talked about, and Brandon, you hit on it. When you get a project, like you said, you get a project with a new client, you may have, bid it low to get the work, right? Totally respectable. I get that. But throughout that project, you're going to build enough value with that client that the next project, they may not even go out and price it out. You're going to get it because you provided a good service. They're going to be like, "Hey, give me a fair fee. You do great work. You're going to get the job."
And I tell you that from being a bottom feeder, because I'm sure anybody listened will say that that's what I have been and I was, or maybe I still am. But I think a lot of the efficiency that goes into, one, your crew chief, the mentoring of that, coming out of the recession, man, we slid that bar down to win, win, win. And on a couple occasions, we won money on those jobs that, when I remember coming out of the recession and calling my mentor and being like, "Hey, I'm bidding my first subdivision. I mean, what should I be?" He said, "Don't do anything less than $450 a lot." So I bid the thing and it went for $220 a lot.
Yep,
And I remember thinking, "Oh man, I'm like so far out of the game," but ended up picking up that work at the tail end because they failed and ended up making a little bit of money on it. And so it wasn't that I wanted to stay there, but you got to know where you can go, right? I mean, that, and I think that's what, you know, as a life cycle of projects go, you know, you get 10 projects into curb stake and you don't have any in rough grade or wherever. I mean, that's a scary time because things are closing out. And so I think what used to, a lot of times will affect my ability is like, hey, where are we at with workload? And I think this new venture has allowed me to not have to be the local guy all the time, you know, that the callbacks, the, hey, is your scope covered? I mean, those are all relationships that get built to have to not be there. But yeah, I mean, it's still, I mean, I just got feedback on a job that I was low by $100,000, you know, and I look at my scope and I'm like, and I honestly feel like I could have made money on it. And so there's either a part of me that's you know, it's the unicorn out there that I feel like maybe I think it's me staking when I was in my 20s. But at the same time, you know, I don't have a relationship with that guy, so he didn't trust me enough. And so that's fine. I appreciate that too. Those relationships are, you know, where you're not like, always the low bidder and always plugging you in because you're the low bidder. That's just grounds for disaster. So eventually they got to start, you know, the overhead's going to come. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know why. I mean, it's always a race. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with just workload. Everyone just gets, you know, we used to have a fire sale when things are getting slow. We're like, go win these.
I remember when I first moved out here, like 2005, 2006, when things were going absolutely insane. And, you know, I would send off like, you know, $200,000-$300,000 staking proposals. And like within 20 minutes, I'd have a signed contract back. You know, nobody was even looking at the fee. They're just like, if you can get to it, go for it type thing, you know? But I mean, to be honest, I worked for a company a number of years ago that lived that life, I guess, of being the lowest. We were the lowest on every single project we bid on. And it was just like, you're continually to feed the machine. You didn't make money on any project basically, but you're continually feeding the machine to kind of keep things going. And that is a very dangerous way to live. And it came back to bite them, unfortunately, but I can totally relate. You know, I know what it's like being on both sides of that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like a lot of the win, low guy, that's important. But I think that, you know, not just always being concerned about what learning opportunities do you have during this? How efficient can you be? What are ideas? And you open things up to like Jason, who's on the site every day to say, hey, I've got you doing it this way. But if you feel like there's a better way that gets us the same result, you know, giving those guys the freedom. And that's where I was cut loose a lot of times and was like, no, let's do this and this and this. And it isn't necessarily that it's game changing, but it could be a big difference of like a no profit and a 10% profit, you know, because all the days I ran low and everybody hated me, I never went to APLS meetings because I was afraid I was going to get jumped in the parking lot. I was making money. We were handing out bonuses, you know, but that was the key. I felt like was we constantly challenged our efficiency of our crew chiefs. We constantly challenged them to be, you know, to where can you save a dime? Where can you save $1? Do you need to be here? Can you pick that up on the way? I mean, it was, and it's a sliding scale of like, you know, then all of a sudden you're being super efficient and where are the field notes and the field notes are gone, you know, oh crap, we need the field notes back. Oh crap, we're losing money again. So it's like finding that, you know, that sweet spot.
It's a constant balancing act for sure. Yeah. No doubt about it. I would have one, so I want to circle back on one thing. And we had this conversation on another podcast where somebody had proposed the idea of there being like, I don't know, a structured license for surveyors, like almost like the medical field, remember? Where if you, when you pass like the initial LS exam, that kind of gives you the leeway to do certain kind of work. But then there'd be a certificate, like a certificate to do Alta surveys, a certificate to do construction staking.
Specializing it.
Yeah. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that, Brandon.
Well, that's interesting because I feel like it would put a new level of maybe of appreciation on a certain, you know, profession. Because I always, day one of my survey career in the Valley was rolling up into a job site and saying, are you an alcoholic or a drug addict? Every surveyor I know is the same, you know, and I remember that like it was yesterday, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be that guy, you know. And I feel like a lot of it is I don't know, it's I lost my train of thought. That's weird. I need to have a Vienna finger. Hang on.
It was all the alcohol and drugs.
What was your question again? Sorry.
About like having a certificate, like to be a construction staking surveyor. In addition,
totally. Sorry. And I feel like that when I got into construction staking from day one. And then for like 2 years solid, did rough grade and property pins. All I did every day. And I got sick of it. Got out of it for a little bit and realized I really liked it. And it was more of watching the project get built. I didn't realize I just needed to be challenged more. So in 2007 and 08, I was working to get licensed, and it was a total kick to the teeth, because there's 300 questions or some odd. And I think 25 of them are, hey, can you calc the slope from this finished grade pavement to this gutter grade? Here's your fall, here's your rise. It was very basic math. I'm like, I got this. And I burned through those in 5 minutes. And then, I failed the LSIT 3 times, and that was a lot of it was me trying to go to seminars and learn. And it was frustrating because I really just got licensed to sign as-bills. Seriously, it's like, the partner that I partnered up with, that's his forte is the legal, we call it legal, the legal aspect of survey, right? Surveying, right? The LTAs, the topos, the boundaries, the stuff, the important stuff. And, but I knew that when I come into this business, I needed a partner that could specialize in that, because I wasn't going to be, that really wasn't my forte. And so I realized this is all I know how to do. So I got to do my best to make a living at it. So it would have been nice. Yeah. I think that's something that, if someone could be proud of, because a lot of times that's what I feel like I just have it to be seal as-bills. That's it. I mean, it's basically like, and I got to order another 500 caps for this subdivision, like how many thousands of my caps are out there in the world. And it makes me a little nauseous, but
Yeah, good point.
Well, we've definitely covered a lot here, gentlemen. Yeah. I am impressed with the wealth of knowledge we've accumulated here. Let's start out with you, Jason. Is there anything else we've not touched on that you want to add to the conversation?
No, I think we hit everything that we could possibly be from start to finish on a construction site.
It was a thorough covering of it all.
It really was.
In a short amount of time.
You want to throw in like a Go Cubs or Go Bears or something?
No, they're done
just
till
for the
next year.
records.
No, they're done till next year. So, but I'll jump on the bandwagon and go Chiefs though.
Oh,
Good man.
Tampa Bay, baby. I'm fully on board with Hudson. What about you, Brandon? Anything else to add?
I'm probably the reason we ran long, because I have a jabber jaw, but I think I'm pretty passionate about construction staking, and I feel like it totally is the black sheep of the surveying community. And it's really been successful for me. I don't know if it's the systems or what we've come up with, but I really enjoy it. I know there's a lot of people out there that really enjoy it. And so hopefully it can get a better name and a little more respectable. So.
Yep. Put some respect on my name.
And congrats on opening your own business too. That's awesome, man. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh, this is great."
In the middle of a pandemic, no less.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
Already growing. Yes. What else?
I got to ask this real quick.
Go for it.
Quick. I do this all the time. The Add Value, Make Friends question special. We'll start with Brandon. Do you have a mantra that you live by?
I'm a very old school, old soul guy. Like, I'm very much a handshake guy. This pandemic has been super tough for me, but like, I'm very much a man of my word. Like, and I'm 44. And so that's a really problem I have with some of the newer generation. I have 2 boys I'm trying to raise, and like a handshake is like the most important. So I feel like a little bit of classic rock and a handshake, I could go, I could stake any subdivision out there and I don't need a contract. But nowadays everyone will tell me how dangerous that is. And I guess we'll find out now that I'm doing my own thing. But I really am like just a man of my word. I really, really believe in just handshake deals, or I guess it's fist pump, or whatever we're doing now.
I'm gonna narrow it down to no cold fish handshakes.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are the worst.
Those are the worst.
Oh man, I instantly just write somebody off with that thing.
Yeah.
What about you, Jason? You got a mantra?
Actions speak louder than words.
There you go.
That's it.
I like it.
He's a man of few words, but they're powerful stuff.
Lead by example, right?
Exactly.
Yep, good stuff. Well, hey, Brandon, Jason, I can't thank you guys enough for hanging out with us tonight. This is awesome. I think this is a great foundation. Let's see what I did there. For future conversations about construction staking. You guys nailed it for sure, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's been great. This is a first for me, but I love, I could talk about construction staking, Chevrolets, CrossFit, maybe.
All right. Well, we'll have you guys back on again in another time. Hopefully you can come back and join us. All right.
Great.
Well, that's a wrap, boys.
Let's put a bow on it.
Yep. Another awesome value-adding show, I must say. Please be sure to check us out at thegeoholics.com. Following us on all reputable social media outlets by searching for The Geoholics. Download all our podcasts from just about everywhere, and don't forget to download the Geoholics app from LandSurveyorsUnited.com. Send us an email at info@thegeoholics.com if you want to come on as a guest on a future show or have content ideas. We'd love to hear from you. Last but not least, please support our amazing friends of the program every chance you get. Be sure to mention that you're a Geoholic for extra special VIP treatment. You might get asked to go to the VIP suite.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pay it forward, add value, make friends. Jefferson Starship. We built this city, available everywhere. As always, and until next time, be safe and healthy, everybody.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you to our friends of the program, Aerotech Mapping Inc. at atmlv.com, Advanced Geodetic Surveys Inc. at agsgps.com, Bad Elf GPS at bad-elf.com, Cobb Fenley at cobbfenley.com, Cyanic Automation at cyanicautomation.com, Diamondback Land Surveying at diamondbacklandsurveying.com, Get Kids Into Survey at getkidsintosurvey.com. Land Surveyors United at landsurveyorsunited.com. Mentoring Mondays at mentoringmondays.xyz. Monson Engineering at monsonengineering.com. Parkland Community College at parkland.edu/landsurveying. Safety Apparel at safetyapparel.us. Tiger Supplies at tigersupplies.com.